Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Hey there, sister. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming in. Hey there, brother. So glad to see you. So, hello, everyone else that's here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips a balance in favor of fair use. So trigger warning because there might be a few things I have to say too that might be triggering to some of y'all. We're going to see how it relates to us as well. So good to see y'all. Thank you. So let's get on to this fight or flight or more. I want to thank Oxford Book Writers for they will have my book out pretty soon. And one of the chapters I do have in there, which is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and I am giving Bezel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps a Score, giving him the credit. Fight, flight, freeze, and please, which is also fawn, responses are integral to trauma. The fight response psychologically is known as a hyperarousal state. It's when the nervous system ramps up and a person may become angry, confrontational, or push back against a threat. The flight response is also called a fight, or flight stress response. Psychologically, it's a hypervigilant state where someone tries to escape, often feeling a surge of anxiety. The freeze response is known as dissociative response. Psychologically, it's a shutdown, often called a freeze or numbing response, where a person disconnects from the situation. So, all of these responses are hardwired stress reactions, and in therapy, they help us understand how trauma leaves people stuck in these loops until they get the right support. These responses can shape their adult relationships and a sense of safety. So, one of the fight responses I had, I can remember several instances when I used this response. Several times I woke up during the night with Marlene kicking me in the mouth. We had to lay with my feet at the top, at her top, while her head was at, while her feet was at my mouth area. Ow, stop kicking me in the mouth. Marlene goes, no. I said, you don't stop kicking me. I would not have a choice but to kick you. Marlene, no. She began kicking me faster and harder. I warned you. My legs went faster than I could even imagine. She finally agreed to stop kicking me. I hated having to do it, but I was tired of my lips being busted because of her. Marlene and the school bus incident. Marlene took it upon herself to take names on the school bus. She was bullying everyone. If you talk, I'm writing your name down. I'm not sure why the bus driver, David Smith, did not reprimand her. Maybe he was waiting on me. Someone met me in the hallway while I was on my way to the bus. A friend says, your sister is ticking everyone off. She is going to get her butt beat by a lot of people. I said, it is for the bus driver to deal with. A friend said, even he is shaking his head. We are waiting on you to stop her. Why me? I don't like violence. I don't like confrontation. I may get in trouble for telling her to sit down. I made it to the bus. The driver pointed back towards her. Are you wanting her to take names? David Smith says, no. I want her to stop bothering everyone. I want her to sit down and shut up. Then why aren't you handling it? Why are you not putting a stop to it? Do you want me to tell her to sit down? Do you want me to tell her she does not have permission to do this? Bus driver says, please do. She did this without asking. She got on the bus and started this. Do what you have to do to get her to sit down and shut up. Everyone was going woo when they saw my demeanor. Marlene puts her hands on her hips and she goes, Darlene, I'm taking names, and if you say anything, I would tell the principal. Marlene, you do not have the driver's permission. You have no authority. He asked me to get you to sit down and stop this bullying of everyone, so sit down. All the kids were enthralled about what was going to happen next. As I walked towards Marlene, she placed her hands back on her hips as she defiantly said, make me. I walked to her. I stated, please sit down. I don't want to do this. She goes, I can always beat you up. I am not worried about that. You are weak. I warned you. I pushed her so hard she went to the floor. She shook her head because it dazed her. Everyone was laughing but me and Marlene. I hated this. This hurt me tremendously to do so. Now, Marlene, be a good girl. Get off the floor. Put the notebook, paper, and pens up. Sit down and shut up. She was about to say something, but she chose to do as I instructed. Everyone, included the bus driver, said thank you. One other time, I had a fight with my abusive husband. I think it just hurt me badly. I could not stand another blow. Remember, I had called the county sheriff's office after he hurt me. The sheriff and his men informed me that my husband Jeffrey could hit me all he liked, so no help from anyone. I had enough. I grabbed a screwdriver and climbed on top of him while facing him. But I was doing this as a means to try to scare him. Hopefully, he will listen and stop being abusive. I pointed the screwdriver at his chest. You need to stop hurting me. I'm so tired of taking it. I'm tired of the many doctor visits. And you, because I went to the doctor again. I do not like going to the doctor. This needs to stop now. Just kill me now. Do it. Just kill me now. Just kill me now. It's just flailing his arms around. My sons ran in and saw what was going on and know how his dad was reacting. They knew I would not hurt his dad. They knew this was me trying to get him to stop breaking my bones. I climbed off of him. I put the screwdriver away. He goes, you're crazy. I said, I'm not like you. I cannot hurt anyone. You are lucky I am not a violent person like you are. So who has the real problem because of liking to harm me, wanting me dead? Who is the real sicko? Yeah, that is weird of him to tell me, the bus driver to tell me to handle it, not him handle it, right? Now I'm thinking he must be the same one that was actually my stepdad that my mom was married to before, and that's what I'm beginning to think now. Flight response. The flight response is also called a fight or flight stress response. Psychologically, it is a hypervigilant state where someone tries to escape after feeling a surge of anxiety. So after Dad died, Stepmom Sue bought a new home with 17 plus acres. I was tired of working feverishly to get the unreasonable chore list done. May, Sue's daughter, had quit school. She had all day to do her chores. But when Sue asked why she didn't do them, May stated, I told Darlene to do them. Can you believe that? Having 30 minutes to clean the entire house, changing all the bedding, washing and drying the bedding, and putting the same bedding back on the beds, dusting the living room, scrubbing two bathrooms, kitchen, and cleaning the six bedrooms. There was no way I had to go to the bedroom and get nude so Sue could beat me all over my body with a belt. I knew what was going to happen, so I flew the coop. I went and walked with nature. When I was 10 and 11 at school, Marlene said that when a car was driving by the school, it backfired, that I would suddenly run out of school. I went into flight mode. She said that they had to get people to go searching for me. The sheriff was called. My siblings told the sheriff that Dad would shoot at me, as I do have one of the stories in my book about this his hide and seek game. It is listed under Daddy Charles in the table of contents. So, with knowing I was shot at, the car backfired made me think of a gun shooting. I was in a state where it's also dissociative. But putting also that I remember I came out of that state when he pulled all the way up into the driveway, and then I saw my daddy. All of a sudden, I could see clearly. I don't know what kind of thing I was at, but my mind was not in the right place. And the sheriff had asked him, said, "What about all these scars all over her body?" "Oh, she fell into the blackberry bushes." "Oh, she said they said that you shot at her with a gun." "Oh, she lied." So the sheriff looked at me and said, "If I ever hear of you telling anything on your parents ever again, we're going to do something to you." So y'all want to know why we don't tell, right? Because sometimes the people in power threaten you as well, and they do nothing. Okay. So freeze response. The freeze response is known as a dissociative response. Psychologically, it's a shutdown, often called a freeze or numbing response, where a person disconnects from the situation. This happened to me innumerable times. I really believe I was MK altered. Years ago, I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. Of course, even with the sex trafficking and child porn, they changed my names, right? Fawn or people pleasing response, and then the fawn response is often called people pleasing. Psychologically, it's a submissive survival strategy where the person prioritizes appeasing the threat to stay safe. Why you are so badly beaten and knocked down many times, we go for the people pleasing or fawn response. We have been taught it's our only way. Do not fight. Do as instructed. Do not show emotions, etc. So all these responses are hardwired stress reactions, and in therapy, they help us to understand how trauma leaves people stuck in these loops until they get the right support. These responses can shape their adult relationships and a sense of safety. I actually got that reading in my new book too. Um, so this is y'all Facebook. This is what she had to say here, so y'all can read that. All right, so let me share some information here. This is not just this is Google right here. I'm going to share y'all what he has right here. I think this is interesting, right? This is Dr. Bessel Vandercolt explains the trauma traps the nervous system and chronic fight, flight, or freeze modes, disrupting the ability to feel safe. Traumatized individuals often get stuck in these survival states, causing the body to re experience past danger rather than living in the present. So, like the car backfired, right? It sounded like a gun. Key concepts, and I think it's funny if you look over to the right, he's got a car backfire sounds like a gunfire. So, just describe that to a T, huh? So, the hyperactive alarm system trauma damages the brain's ability to distinguish between past danger and present safety. The amygdala constantly triggers the nervous system, leading to chronic agitation, fight or flight, or known as freeze. Fight or flight characterized by unimaginable rage, intense anxiety, panic and restlessness, or an inability to calm down. At least I was not the kind that really was a danger, whenever I fought. Freeze collapse. When fight or flight fails, the system shuts down, resulting in feelings of being stuck, dissociation, or emotional numbness living behind glass. The thinking goes offline. When triggered, the prefrontal cortex, rational thought shuts down, making it impossible to think one's way out of the trauma response. The body keeps the score. Y'all, I want to tell y'all if y'all want a good book, There's a good book right here. The Body Keeps the Score. That's how you'll know more and more from this doctor who done these studies and written this book. Traumatic memories are not just conscious thoughts. They are stored in muscle tension, visceral sensations, and automatic and voluntary reactions. And note right here, y'all, a lot of people say, well, you go to talk therapy and stuff like that, but he says that traditional talk therapy is often ineffective while a patient is frozen because the rational brain is inactive. Healing requires body based somatic approaches such as yoga, theater, or communal rhythms to help the nervous system experience safety and release stored survival energy. If y'all see somebody acting a little stressed out when something triggered him, please know that is where they're at, and please do not go against them. Please be there for the person. All right, so let's go to the next one. I changed my screen again and put that big area there. Okay, so let's go now to this other person's fight or flight. This is where I got more information. This is the attachment project, okay? You can look it up online. It said the six trauma responses explained. If you heard of fight or flight, then you're already familiar with two of our common trauma responses. But there are many other ways your body might respond. You might find different variations of these six F's of trauma responses, but each person is a valid and natural way to react to an unnatural event. Today, we're going to take a look at these six responses: fight, flight, freeze, bond, bind, faint. When faced with immediate danger, your sympathetic nervous system activates. This sends your blood to your heart and lungs, away from your extremities and digestive organs, so that you can take rapid action. Your focus narrows on your muscles become and your muscles become tense, and you might notice sweat, a racing heart, and fast breathing. At this point, your brain makes a snap calculation. Can I overpower this threat? When the answer is yes, you enter the fight response. A lot of times my answer was no, they were too strong. In the fight response, you might feel intense anger, a surge of energy, or an urge to physically lash out. You may find your jaw or fist clenching, and your instinct is to move toward the threat. When the fight response is triggered, you might feel all these feelings again. You might be more irritable, tense, and argumentative than usual. As a kid, I was just people pleasing. I was Fawn. I did not want to step on glass. You're afraid of. You had to walk very tiptoey. You did not want to frustrate or anger these adults who were so evil. Okay, the flight response. If the answer to can I overpower this threat is no, then your brain's new calculation is can I outrun this threat? I'm sorry I'm laughing, but when your brain decides to outrun the threat, you enter the flight response. In the flight response, you are still prepared for action. So your physical responses are similar to the fight response. However, you direct this energy away from the threat instead of towards it. When the flight response is triggered, you might exceptionally feel exceptionally restless, fidgety, and tense. You might also take excessive measures to avoid thoughts and feelings about the traumatic event, such as an intense focus on a new skill or project to the detriment or other aspects of your life. By the way, you are not crazy, okay? By the way, this is your body. The body keeps a score. The body keeps that knowledge. It recorded it. The freeze response. When you cannot overpower or outrun the threat, your brain now has to divert to its new best survival technique, the freeze response. The freeze response is thought to emulate playing dead. or staying so still that perhaps a danger won't notice you. During a traumatic event, the freeze response can feel like your body has gone rigid and you're stuck in place. Your heart rate may slow down as your body preserves energy, slowing your breathing too. You may feel physically numb, which helps your body to survive by stopping you from experiencing the full impact of the threat. When the freeze response is triggered, you may feel physically incapable of moving even though you want to. You may feel dissociated, like you're not completely present or you're separated from yourself. Some people also experience psychological regression, temporarily reverting to younger emotional states when overwhelmed. The people around you might notice that you seem spaced out, distracted, or depressed. It's not uncommon for trauma survivors to feel shame following the freeze response, with many wonder why they didn't do anything. But the fact is that you did. Your body responded to help you survive in the best way it knew how to. So please stop beating yourself up. I'm begging you. If you're going through this, just know and thank your body for protecting you and defending you. The faint response. During the freeze response, your heart rate and blood pressure can become so low that you faint. This can protect your brain from having to experience the event at all. The faint response can also persist after the event. There's a documented correlation between traumatic experiences and susceptibility to fainting. You may also feel lightheaded, weak, or dizzy. It's like when that state trooper had told me when I put my purse down on the table. Oh, I remember you. I said, for what? Uh, all the sex videos that all the child porn that his daddy did. That knocked me off my feet. I was paralyzed. Just I could not move my legs at all. I just had to catch myself with my upper body, but my legs were not working. I would have loved to walk away and get away from over there, but no, my body failed me. I could not walk away. I had to just sit there. The fawn response. The fawn response usually occurs when all other options are unavailable and the threat is long term and relational. This is often an aggressive or abusive person close to the survivor, like a partner or family member. During the fawn response, you try to appease the threat to make it less likely to pose a risk to your safety, even though this is often at your own expense. For example, you might spend hours tidying the house to avoid conflict, even if you need to be somewhere else during this time. When the fawn response persists outside of the context of the threat, you might have difficulty with people pleasing, avoiding conflict, and sacrificing your own needs to benefit others. It might be difficult to say no and set boundaries, which can create a vicious cycle of abuse. Now, here comes a fine response. The fine response is unlike the others we discussed, and it is not something we do during a traumatic experience, but something we might engage in the aftermath. In the fine response, you might experience denial about your trauma. You might play it down, question whether it happened, or pretend it didn't. This often happens because the trauma is too big for your brain to process, or because of social pressure to appear to be okay. Even though you might seem happy and calm on the outside, you might be experiencing anger, frustration, and anxiety. You might avoid situations that could bring up your traumatic experience, which could lead to isolation. It's important to know that it's perfectly understandable, even normal, to not be fine after a traumatic experience, even though it can feel insurmountable at times. Try to approach your thoughts and feelings with self compassion and know that these difficulties can and do get better with time. This has kind of hit a nerve with me because when I began therapy outside of that, after that psychiatrist, and this lady, I did not want to. It's kind of hard to trust anybody. And she goes, "How are you feeling?" I still didn't know how to describe my feelings, right? So all I knew was fine. So all I gave was a fine response. I think I did not want to uncover more of the pain if all I had done remembered about my son being murdered and stuff. I think I was in that fine state of mind. I was stopping a lot of the, trying to stop a lot of it because it was like hard enough to bear. Because at home I was being abused by my husband at the same time when I was trying to go through the treatment of healing from the past responses as a child. So doing it both ways is kind of difficult, right? Uh, I don't know. Good. I'm glad you're back though. Bucket list. So then there's trauma responses and PTSD. It first became a recognized diagnosis in 1980, but its symptoms have been known and somewhat understood for a long time. Famously, World War One veterans were known to return with shell shock, which loosely described abnormal behavior such as hypervigilance, tinnitus, that means ringing in the ears, I believe, right? Tremors, or insomnia. Upon finding that some of these soldiers had no physical damage, doctors started to wonder whether the cause was emotional. However, the first descriptions of PTSD like symptoms go all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia. As far as back 1300 BC, where symptoms such as flashbacks, disturbed sleep, and low mood were thought to be caused by spirits of those a person had killed in conflict. Any other trauma responses can be present in PTSD, but experiencing a trauma response post trauma does not necessarily mean PTSD is present. Within the first month after the trauma experience, any PTSD like symptoms can be attributed to an acute stress response. If these symptoms persist for longer than a month, no matter when they started, then PTSD may be diagnosed. Anybody else with PTSD, if y'all hear fireworks going off, it can remind you of gunshots and send me a little over the edge. You have to be careful about that too. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, DSM-5, B5, or DSM-5, okay, often used by professionals to assist in diagnosis. Symptoms of PTSD can be categorized into four different clusters, and each one must be met to form a diagnosis. To diagnose PTSD, these symptoms must also follow exposure to a traumatic event, including learning about a traumatic event which happened to somebody close to you or repeated exposure to details of a traumatic event due to occupation. Must cause significant difficulty in daily life and must not be potentially caused by another medical condition or substance, like drugs and alcohol. You may notice that many of these diagnostic criteria relate to one of the trauma responses. We saw avoidance in the flight response and irritability in the fight response. This goes to show how these responses can overlap, often with little predictability. After prolonged relational trauma, an individual could develop complex PTSD. So now they got CPTSD in there, which some people fail to relate that. Some doctors will not diagnose people with PTSD. It's recognized in the World Health Organization's International Classification Diseases, ICD 11. It includes a previous diagnostic criteria for PTSD, as well as difficulties with emotional regulation, negative self evaluation, and difficulty sustaining and forming close relationships with others. It's often where the fawn response and people pleasing behavior comes from. I tell y'all, please do not adhere and feel like you need to commit suicide. I beg of you. It is difficult when you are going through these things. And it's hard to see that it can and will get better, but it will. For someone that's been there, for someone that's even attempted suicide several times, please do not go into that kind of zone. Please know that people generally care, all right? I'm begging and pleading of you. There are different people who do care. They said recovery from trauma is a three-stage process: stabilization of symptoms and regaining a sense of safety, processing and reintegrating traumatic memories, and reconnecting and rebuilding trust with others. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. I think it's very important to go to. Sorry that the Wi-Fi booted you off. Share the screen again. Now here is Bessel Cox. I would hope that y'all would go get his book. The body keeps score. And see, I think he's got a picture of him right here. I think he lives in Minnesota. He demonstrates that trauma lives physically in the body through altered nervous system patterns and muscle memory, requiring evidence based therapeutic approaches like EMDR, somatic experiences, and trauma sensitive yoga to heal beyond traditional talk therapy alone. For decades, mental health treatment assumed trauma lived in your thoughts, something you could talk through and then intellectualize away. Bessel van der Kolk's groundbreaking research shattered this belief, proving that trauma actually lives in your body and requires healing approaches that go far beyond traditional talk therapy. Thank you so much, Bessel. So here's where he goes on to do. That's his history. Okay, when Bessel van der Kolk published The Body Keeps a Score in 2014, it changed how millions of people understood their own suffering. The book spent years on the New York Times bestseller list, a rare feat for a work rooted in neuroscience and clinical research. Its success reflected something profound. Readers finally felt seen. Vanderkolk had put words to experiences that many people with trauma had long felt but couldn't explain. The book's power lies in its accessibility. Vanderkolk translated decades of complex research into language that anyone could understand. He wove together case studies from the clinical practice, cutting edge brain imaging findings, and historical context about how our understanding of trauma has evolved. For many readers, it was the first time they encountered the ideas that their bodies might hold memories their minds couldn't fully access. Okay, what is Bessel van der theory on trauma? It challenges the fundamental assumption that shaped mental health treatment for decades. Traditional approaches often treated trauma as a psychological problem, something to be processed through talking and thinking. Medico argued this was incomplete at best. His central thesis is elegantly simple. Trauma lives in the body. When something overwhelming happens, especially when escape isn't possible, the experience doesn't just create painful memories, it reshapes your nervous system, alters your stress responses, and changes how your body feels to inhabit. You might intellectually understand that a traumatic event is over, yet your body continues responding as if danger is still present. Like sometimes I don't understand what's going on, because I know that I'm past a lot of that trauma and everything. Then all of a sudden, my legs and everything start shaking, and I'm nervous and everything. And it's like, what's going on? What trauma is this associated to? That opens up the door to finding that part what my body is trying to remember at that time, and then desensitizing it and healing that through the ways that he's talking about the EMDR. He didn't dismiss talk therapy entirely. Understanding your story matters, but he argued that insight alone often isn't enough to release trauma's grip on the body. You can spend years analyzing why you feel the way you do without ever feeling fundamentally different. I can understand why there's a lot more. You think that a person's fine and everything, and yet the body still remembered, the body still aching, the body still wanting to go to run or flight. It makes you feel like you're crazy, you're unacceptable, sit down, behave, you're fine, all this kind of stuff. And it's like you're trying to tell somebody, I don't feel fine, I don't feel good. So you really need a positive support system in your corner, okay? He explains how trauma alters brain functions, particularly in areas responsible for detecting danger, regulating emotions, and maintaining a sense of self. Brain scans of people with trauma histories often show distinct patterns in how these regions communicate. Early experiences with caregivers shape how your nervous system develops. When those relationships are frightening or unpredictable, it affects your capacity to feel safe with others throughout life. Kolk emphasizes that healing often happens within relationships, not in isolation. The body as a resource, perhaps most revolutionary, with its emphasis on somatic and body based approaches to healing, practices like yoga, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and other methods that engage the body directly can help release trauma in ways that talking cannot. Integration over insight. Medicote stresses that recovery isn't about achieving perfect understanding of your past. It's about helping all parts of your brain and body to work together again. This means learning to tolerate sensations, stay present in the body, and gradually expand your capacity to feel safe. These concepts represented a significant shift in trauma treatment. They validated that many people intuitively knew that their struggles weren't just in their head and that healing might require more than words alone. Okay, here's how it says that trauma affects the brain. Understanding why trauma gets stuck in the body requires looking at what happens inside the brain during and what overwhelming experiences. Be- Bessel van theory draws heavily on neuroscience to explain why traditional talk therapy often falls short and why the body must be part of healing. The brain's response to trauma isn't a character flaw or weakness, it's biology doing exactly what it evolved to do: help keep you alive. The alarm system goes haywire. Deep inside within your brain sits a amygdala, an almond shaped structure that acts as your internal smoke detector. Its job is to scan for danger and sound the alarm when threats appear. In a person with unresolved trauma, this alarm system becomes hypersensitive. It starts detecting threats everywhere, even in safe situations. A car backfiring sounds like gunfire. A raised voice triggers panic. A certain smell brings waves of dread. The amygdala doesn't distinguish between real danger and reminders of past danger. It simply reacts, flooding your body with stress hormones and preparing you to fight, flee, or freeze. This hyperactivity explains why people with trauma histories often experience persistent anxiety symptoms that seem to come out of nowhere. Like a lot of times, I get the feelings. I love to go shopping in the stores, and sometimes there's some places that's old groceries or some old buildings and everything. And every time that it's got that weird old smell of the wood and all this that kind of stuff, I just want to pass out. I want to run to the bathroom. Um, and now we realize it because of what I described in the past about what happened in the barns, right? So now I can understand why when I'm in that kind of thing that memory is shooting off there of wanting to run, flee, and my body at times just collapses in the middle of the aisle. My legs won't work. And it's kind of funny to me because I've seen other people go and try to help somebody who couldn't walk, and yet I just had to lay there, and nobody ever. People pass me like, okay, she laying on the floor. They didn't like, "Are you okay?" It's, but my legs wouldn't function. I had to just wait till they would function, But that was embarrassing for me to lay on the floor. But it's even more lonely feeling when it felt like nobody gave a dang. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so when the amygdala sounds its alarm, something critical happens in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking, planning, and decision making. It essentially goes offline. Blood flow shifts away from this region and toward the survival focused parts of the brain. This is why you can't simply think your way out of a trauma response. In those moments, the logical part of your brain isn't running the show. You might know intellectually that you're safe, but your body doesn't believe it. Medical emphasizing that this disconnect between knowing and feeling is central to understanding trauma script. It's memories without timestamps. The hippocampus normally processes experiences and files them away as memories with clear beginnings, middles, and ends. It stamps them with context. This happened in the past. It's over now. You survived. But during traumatic events, the hippocampus struggles to do its job properly. Research shows that traumatic memories are fragmented, stored as disconnected sensory pieces rather than coherent narratives. This fragmentation explains flashbacks without proper timestamps. The brain can't distinguish between remembering something and reliving it. A trigger activates these memory fragments, and suddenly your nervous system responds as if the trauma is happening right now. When words fail, one of Vanderkolk's most significant observation involves Broca's area, the brain region responsible for speech and language. Brain imaging studies show that this area often shuts down during trauma responses. This finding explains something many people with trauma know intimately. The experience is literally unspeakable. I can remember, being hit in the head and being, going unconscious. And then I can remember trying to talk again and I had trouble forming the words. And I was called fat, stupid, ugly, retarded, and all that other kind of stuff of that. But it was really caused from the trauma and the physical damage that was done. Trauma lives in sensations, images, and body states that exist below the level of language. This is why someone might struggle to describe what happened to them, even years later. The words simply aren't there because the verbal brain wasn't online when the memory was encoded. The brain stuck in survival mode. Perhaps most troubling is that these changes don't automatically reverse when danger passes. The brain remains in high alert, scanning for threats, ready to react. Months or years later, the nervous system still operates as if trauma is going ongoing. This persistent survival mode drains energy, disrupts sleep, strains relationships, and keeps people disconnected from the present moment. It said also hope through neuroplasticity. That is the brain's ability to form new neural connections and reorganize itself means that these patterns aren't permanent. With the right interventions, the brain can learn to calm its alarm system, bring the thinking brain back online, and process fragmented memories into coherent narratives. This is the foundation of Bessel van theory because trauma changes the brain. Healing must also change the brain, and also because so much of trauma's impact bypasses language and lives in the body, effective treatment must engage the body directly. So when we go, I think we pretty well need to go ahead and I think we went over this pretty good without having to go back over all this. It says signs you're in sympathetic activation, racing or pounding heart, tight jaw, neck or shoulders, difficulty sitting still, scanning the environment for threats, snapping at small annoyances, trouble falling asleep despite exhaustion. Signs you are in dorsal vagal shutdown, feeling heavy or weighted down, difficulty getting out of bed, numbness or disconnection from emotions, brain fog or difficulty concentrating, monotone voice or flat facial expression, wanting to hide or withdraw completely. Signs you are in ventral vagal safety, relaxed muscles, especially at base and shoulders, steady, comfortable breathing, feeling curious and open, enjoying connection with others, ability to be playful, feeling grounded in your body. Okay, vagal toning exercises by state. Just like you can strengthen a muscle, you can tone your vagus nerve to improve its flexibility. The goal isn't to eliminate stress responses, but to move more fluidly between states. Different exercises work better depending on where you're starting. If you're stuck in the sympathetic activation, your system needs help completing the stress cycle and discharging excess energy. Shake it out. Stand and let your body shake naturally for 2 or 3 minutes, starting with your hands and letting the movement spread. Cold water on your face. That's what I do. Splash cold water on your cheeks and around your eyes to activate the dive reflex, which slows heart rate. Vigorous movement. Run in place, do jumping jacks, or push against a wall to use up the mobilized energy. Extended exhales. Breathe in for 4 counts, eight out for 8 counts, repeating for several minutes. So if you're stuck in the dorsal vagal shutdown, your system needs gentle activation because it can access calm. Push it too hard, backfires. Oriented, slowly look around the room, naming 5 things you see, bringing awareness to the present moment. Gentle rocking, that's something I would do also. Rock side to side or forward and back while seated, stimulating your vestibular system. Humming or singing, the vibration stimulates the vagus nerve where it passes through your throat. Small movements, wiggle your fingers and toes gradually, increasing movement as tolerated. That's kind of weird. I did a lot of them exercises in this one, and I noticed that I'm getting better. So I must have been in the stuck in the dorsal vagus shutdown. For building ventral vagal capacity, these practices help you spend more time in a safe social state. Social engagement. Make eye contact with someone you trust. Have a genuine conversation or share a meal together. Laughter, watch something funny or spend time with people who make you laugh. Gargling. Gargling water vigorously activates muscles connected to the vagus nerve. Breathing practices. Slow, rhythmic breathing with slightly lower exhales signals safety to your nervous system. Consistency matters more than intensity. Brief daily practice builds nervous system's flexibility over time, gradually expanding your capacity to return to safety after stress. How trauma manifests in the body. Understanding trauma intellectually is one thing. Feeling it locked in your muscles, gut, and breath is another experience entirely. The body doesn't just remember traumatic events, it continues responding to them long after the danger has passed. This physical dimension of trauma explains why talking about painful experiences sometimes isn't enough to heal them. How does trauma live in the body according to Bessel Medical? His research reveals that traumatic experiences fundamentally alter how the body functions. When you experience overwhelming stress, your nervous system launches survival responses fight, flight, or freeze. Under normal circumstances, these responses complete themselves. You fight off the threat, you run to safety, but the danger passes and your body returns to baseline. But trauma interrupts the cycle. The survival energy gets stuck, frozen in time within your tissues. Your muscles remain braced for impact. Your breath stays shallow. ready for the next blow. Your gut clenches in perpetual anticipation of threat. This isn't metaphorical. Childhood trauma studies show measurable changes in how the body operates after traumatic experiences. Heart rate variability decreases, stress hormone patterns shift, the immune system becomes dysregulated. Your body essentially stays trapped in a moment that has long since passed, continuing to protect you from a danger that no longer exists. One of the most significant impacts involves interoception, your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. Trauma often impairs this internal awareness. You might struggle to recognize hunger, fatigue, or emotional states. Some people feel disconnected from their bodies entirely, as if watching themselves from a distance. Others become hyper aware of every sensation, interpreting normal body signals as threats. I wish I had somebody in here to help me read these. Common physical symptoms of restored trauma. Trauma doesn't announce itself with a clear label. Instead, it often shows up as mysterious physical symptoms that don't respond to conventional medical treatment. Chronic muscle tension is one of the most common manifestations. Your body holds incomplete fight or flight responses in contracted muscles, particularly in areas you would use to defend yourself or run away. This tension can persist for years, creating pain patterns that seem to have no clear origin. Digestive issues frequently accompany trauma histories. The gut contains millions of nerve cells and maintains constant communication with the brain. When your nervous system stays dysregulated, your digestion suffers. Irritable bowel syndrome, chronic nausea, and appetite changes are common among people with unresolved trauma. Chronic pain, without clear medical cause, often has roots in traumatic stress. Fibromyalgia, chronic headaches, and persistent back pain can all be connected to how the nervous system processes threat. When doctors can't find a structural explanation for ongoing pain, trauma may be playing a role. Autoimmune conditions have been linked to prolonged stress responses when the body stays in survival mode. Inflammation becomes chronic. Over time, this can contribute to conditions where the immune system attacks healthy tissue. Breathing patterns shift after trauma, often becoming shallow and restricted. Deep belly breathing feels vulnerable when your body believes danger is near. Many people with trauma histories breathe primarily into their upper chest, never fully exhaling or allowing their diaphragm to move freely. So, where trauma hides, there's a body mapping guide. Trauma tends to accumulate in predictable areas of the body. Understanding these common holding patterns can help you recognize where your body might be storing unresolved stress. The jaw holds unexpressed words, clenched against things you couldn't say, teeth grinding, TMJ pain, and chronic jaw tension often connect to silent emotions or suppressed screams. The shoulders carry the weight of hypervigilance. They rise toward the ears in protective posture, guarding the vulnerable neck. Chronic shoulder pain and tension headaches often originate here. The chest tightens around grief, fear, and heartbreak. Shallow breathing, chest pressure, the sensation of a heavy heart can indicate stored emotional pain in this area. The gut responds to threat with clenching and churning, butterflies, nausea, and digestive distress often reflect anxiety. and unprocessed fear held in their belly. The hips store survival instincts, particularly the urge to run or kick. Many people experience emotional releases during hip opening exercises, as this area holds deep seated fight and flight energy. Recognizing where your body holds tension is the first step towards releasing it. This awareness creates a foundation for body based healing approaches that can help complete the interrupted survival responses still living in your tissues. So, so it's going down. Then there's body based modalities. Medical recommends EMDR, that is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, uses bilateral stimulation, typically eye movements following a therapist's finger while a person recalls traumatic memories. This might sound unusual, but research shows it helps the brain reprocess reprocess stuck memories as they lose their emotional charge. Medical describes watching patients who have been frozen in trauma for years finally experience relief after EMDR sessions. The memory remains, but the body no longer reacts as if the danger is happening now. This is getting harder to read. I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. Hey there, Mr. L. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. So, trauma sensitive yoga differs significantly from a typical yoga class. It focuses on rebuilding interoception, that internal body awareness trauma often destroys. Instructors offer choices rather than commands, using language like you might try instead of do this now. This approach helps people with trauma histories reclaim a sense of agency over their own bodies. Medico's research at the Trauma Center found that yoga reduced PTSD symptoms in ways that talk therapy alone could not achieve. Neurofeedback. It trains the brain to produce healthier patterns of electrical activity. Sensors placed on the scalp measure brain waves while a person watches the screen or plays a simple game. When the brain produces desired patterns, they receive positive feedback. Over time, the brain learns to regulate itself more effectively. Vandekot has called neurofeedback one of the most promising developments in trauma treatment because it addresses the dysregulated brain activity. Somatic experiences developed by Peter Levine works with the body's incomplete defensive responses. Remember how trauma can leave the body stuck in fight, flight, or freeze? This approach helps people safely complete those interrupted survival actions. A therapist might guide someone to notice physical sensations, allow trembling or movement, and gradually discharge the energy that got trapped during the traumatic event. There's internal family systems, works with what founder Richard Schwartz calls parts, that protective strategies we develop to cope with overwhelming experiences. Some parts might numb us out, others might drive perfectionism, still others might hold the pain of past trauma. IFS helps people develop compassion for these protective parts while accessing the core and damaged self. Medical appreciates this approach because it honors how the mind naturally organizes itself around traumatic experiences. So, theater movement therapies might seem unconventional, but Medical has seen remarkable results. Programs that involve acting, drumming, or martial arts help people inhabit their bodies in new ways. These activities require being present, coordinating with others, and experiencing the body as capable rather than damaged. For some people with trauma, especially those who dissociate, embodied creative expression offers a path back to feeling alive. If we don't went over why talk therapy was not okay, it says choosing the right approach for your trauma type, selecting evidence based PTSD treatments depends on several factors: the nature of your trauma, your current symptoms, and your personal preferences. There's no single best approach for anyone. Single incident traumas, like a car accident or assault, often respond well to EMDR. The memory is discrete, and bilateral stimulation can help reprocess it effectively. Many people see significant improvement in 8 to 12 sessions. Complex or developmental trauma, the kind that results from ongoing childhood abuse or neglect, typically requires longer term treatment. Approaches like IFS and somatic experiencing may be particularly helpful because they address the layered protective strategies that developed over years. Trauma sensitive yoga can rebuild the body awareness that early trauma disrupts. For people who experience significant dissociation, feeling disconnected from their bodies or emotions, grounding approaches are essential. Movement therapies, yoga, and somatic work help reestablish the body mind connection before processing specific memories. Neurofeedback can benefit people whose nervous systems remain highly dysregulated despite other treatments. It also is useful for those who find talking about trauma overwhelming since it works directly with brain patterns without requiring verbal processing. Your preferences matter too. Some people feel drawn to yoga's gentle self-directed quality. Others prefer the structured protocol of EMDR. Still others connect with the creative expression of theater or movement work. Best treatment is one you'll actually engage in. If you're unsure which approach might work for you, which approach, a free assessment can help you understand your needs and connect with trauma informed therapists at your own pace. Many therapists integrate multiple modalities, tailoring treatment to your specific situation. What matters most is finding a therapist who understands that healing trauma means working with the body, not just the mind. Looking for someone trained in at least one body based approach who can help you move from surviving to thriving. I hope this has helped you all, and please pass this on if you think it can help somebody else. I really want people to see that they can overcome and know that they can overcome. Just please don't lose hope. Don't listen to other people who say you cannot. You matter. So thank you all, and God bless y'all. Like I said, Bandicoot's book, The Body Keeps the Score. God bless you.